What if your silence could say everything your words never could? What if, instead of explaining, proving, or defending yourself, you simply step back and let your peace do the talking? There's a kind of strength that doesn't shout, doesn't chase, and doesn't beg to be understood. It's quiet, it's calm, but it shakes everything around it. Stay until the end of this video, because once you understand this power, the power of your silence, you'll never react the same way again. You'll walk differently, you'll feel differently, and you'll finally realize that silence isn't weakness. It's transformation. There comes a point when words no longer matter, when the person who once claimed to care can't hear your pain, no matter how loud you speak, when your emotions feel wasted on someone who stopped listening long before you stopped talking. That's when silence becomes your strongest weapon, not to hurt them, but to heal you, because silence is not the absence of communication. It's a message that says, I'm done explaining my worth. Silence creates space, a space where dignity lives. It's in that space where self-respect grows quietly. When you stop reaching out, stop texting, stop proving, and stop trying to remind them of your value, something magical happens. You shift the energy, they start to notice the distance, they start to wonder what changed. The same silence they once took for granted now becomes the loudest reminder of what they lost. There's deep psychology behind this. Humans crave attention, validation, and control. When you were emotionally available, you fulfilled all three. You gave them comfort, reassurance, and a sense of importance. But when you walk away silently, you take that energy back, and it creates a void. A void they can't fill easily. That's when regret starts to whisper in their mind. They replay moments, they think about what they said, what they didn't do, and how easily they lost someone who cared. Silence makes them sit with their own thoughts, and that's something most people run from. You see, silence doesn't beg for closure. It gives closure to you. It doesn't scream for attention. It commands it. It tells them that you've chosen peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, and self-respect over self-sacrifice. That shift is powerful because it breaks the emotional pattern they were used to. They expect reaction, but you give reflection. They expect anger, but you give peace. And nothing confuses the human mind more than calmness after rejection. This is the art of emotional control, one of the highest forms of power a person can have. Because when you control your emotions, you control the outcome, you control the story, you decide how it ends. And in that control, you silently rebuild your confidence. Every time you resist the urge to text, every time you choose not to argue, every time you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you reclaim your power, piece by piece. The beautiful thing about silence is that it doesn't need validation. It doesn't need to prove a point. It simply lets time reveal the truth. People eventually see what they lost. Not because you told them, but because your absence shows them. You become the person they remember when the noise of their world fades away. Your peace becomes magnetic, your energy becomes mysterious, and your silence becomes unforgettable. But here's the truth. Silence isn't easy, it's painful, it's uncomfortable, it tests every part of you that wants to be seen, heard, and understood. Yet those moments of discomfort are where growth happens, because silence teaches you discipline. It teaches you to sit with your emotions instead of projecting them. It teaches you to find validation within, not from others. And the more you master it, the more untouchable you become. So when you choose silence after pain, you're not ignoring them, you're honoring yourself. You're saying, I deserve peace more than attention. You're saying, I refuse to fight for someone who doesn't fight for me. That quiet decision changes everything. It rebuilds your confidence. It restores your self-respect. It allows you to rise again, not bitter, but wiser. And one day they'll realize it. They'll remember your voice, your energy, your kindness, and it will hit them that they pushed away someone who would have stood by them through anything. But by then, it'll be too late. Because you'll have already built a life that doesn't revolve around proving your worth. That's the reward of silence. It gives you your power back. It brings you peace. And most importantly, it teaches you that walking away with grace is louder than staying and begging to be seen. So, if you've been broken, hurt, or undervalued, remember this, your silence isn't emptiness, it's power. It's your declaration that your peace matters more than their presence. Stay until the end of this video, because when you learn the silent ways to make them regret losing you, you'll stop chasing closure and start becoming it. The next sections will show you exactly how. When silence settles in, something powerful begins to awaken. The real you, the version of yourself that was buried under the weight of trying too hard, giving too much and expecting too little in return. The moment you stop chasing their attention, your energy starts returning home. That's when the rebuilding begins. Not to make them miss you, but to make yourself whole again. The truth is, when someone takes you for granted, it's because they've gotten too used to your light. They've mistaken your kindness for weakness, your patience for permission, and your love for something they could always come back to. But when you finally walk away in silence, they feel that shift, that sudden emptiness where your energy used to be. And while they try to fill that void, you begin to rebuild yourself from the inside out. Rebuilding doesn't happen overnight. It starts quietly, almost invisibly. You wake up one day and realize that the world feels different. Not because it changed, but because your focus did. You stop replaying the past and start rewriting your future. You start doing things that bring you joy instead of pain. You start showing up for yourself the way you once showed up for them. That's when healing begins to take root. Not loudly, but deeply. Psychology tells us that the human mind seeks comfort in familiarity, even when it hurts. That's why walking away feels hard at first. Your brain still craves what it's used to. But each time you resist the urge to look back, you teach your mind a new lesson: I am enough on my own. Over time, that lesson becomes belief, and that belief becomes your power. You start to remember who you were before they made you question your worth. You start setting boundaries, not as walls to keep love out, but as gates to protect your peace. You become intentional about where your energy goes. You stop trying to fix people who never tried to understand you. You stop explaining why you deserve love, because now you know you always did. That realization is what makes them regret losing you. Not your absence, but your evolution. They begin to see a version of you they never respected enough to know. The one who laughs without needing validation. The one who shines without needing permission. The one who no longer seeks closure because peace became the closure. When they notice that change, it stirs something deep in their mind, a mix of curiosity and regret. They start to wonder how you managed to rise without them, and that thought alone becomes their quiet punishment. Rebuilding yourself is not about revenge. It's about renewal. It's about looking at the pieces of your broken heart and realizing they were never meant to stay scattered. Each piece teaches you something: strength, patience, forgiveness, self-love. You collect those lessons and build something stronger, something more beautiful than what was lost. You start treating yourself like someone worth fighting for, because you finally understand you are. This is where your silence turns into glow. Not a surface-level glow, but the kind that radiates from within, the kind that comes from peace, purpose, and self-respect. You start eating better, thinking better, living better. You take care of yourself because you deserve to feel alive again. You start dreaming again, not about them, but about your future. You find joy in solitude because solitude no longer feels like loneliness, it feels like freedom. And here's the truth that most people miss. When you rebuild yourself, you don't just change how others see you, you change how you see yourself. You no longer settle for half love or half effort. You no longer accept being an option when you know you're a priority. That's when you step into a new kind of confidence, quiet, unshakable, and deeply rooted in self-worth. And while you rise in silence, they begin to feel the weight of what they lost. They remember how your energy used to calm them, how your presence used to ground them, how your love used to make them feel safe. But now, that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You've outgrown the space where their love once lived. You've rebuilt yourself into someone who no longer fits the old story. Rebuilding yourself isn't just healing, it's evolution. You're not trying to prove that you're better without them. You're becoming better because you finally chose yourself. That decision alone changes everything. Because when you start loving yourself the way you wish they loved you, you stop waiting for closure, for apology, for validation. You realize the only thing you ever needed was your own strength. And one day, they'll see you again, maybe in person, maybe through a glimpse of your life. And in that moment, they'll feel something powerful, regret mixed with admiration. They'll realize you became everything they once underestimated. But by then, you'll have already moved so far ahead that their opinion won't matter anymore, because the real victory isn't in making them regret losing you. It's in becoming someone you'll never lose again. That's the quiet magic of rebuilding yourself. It's not about showing them what they lost, it's about discovering what you found. peace, strength, and a version of yourself that no heartbreak could destroy. Something changes the moment you rebuild yourself. Your energy starts to shift. You stop reacting to every small thing, stop over-explaining, and stop proving your worth to people who never saw it. There's a peace that enters your life, a calmness that used to feel foreign. That peace isn't emptiness, it's strength. It's the quiet confidence of someone who finally understands that not everything deserves a response. This is where detachment begins, not as indifference but as emotional freedom. Detachment isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about caring differently. It's about choosing where your emotions go and where they don't. When you detach, you're not shutting down your heart, you're protecting it. You stop bleeding energy into people who drain it, and you start saving that energy for yourself. You learn that love without respect isn't love, and peace without distance isn't possible. That understanding changes everything. The glow of detachment is invisible at first, but undeniable later. It's the way you start smiling without needing validation, the way you no longer explain your silence or your absence, the way you stay calm even when someone tries to provoke you. It's the moment you realize that your reactions once gave others power, and your peace takes it back. Psychology teaches that human attachment thrives on attention and response. When someone loses that from you, they feel a sudden emptiness, an emotional disconnection they can't control. That's when they begin to miss what they once dismissed, because your silence and detachment break a pattern. The pattern where you used to be predictable. When they expected you to react, you no longer did. When they thought they could pull you back, you didn't return. That unpredictability creates curiosity, and curiosity turns into regret. But here's the secret. You're not doing it to make them regret. You're doing it to set yourself free. You're no longer moved by what they say or don't say, do or don't do. You've learned to sit in your own energy without needing theirs to complete you, and that's where real strength begins. When your peace no longer depends on their presence, there's a glow that comes with detachment, and it's not something makeup or filters can create. It's the glow of someone who has faced their pain, felt it fully, and chosen to rise anyway. It's the quiet confidence of knowing you no longer have to fight for a place in someone's life who couldn't see your value when you were right there. You carry that calm energy everywhere you go, and people start to notice it. They can't quite explain it, but they feel it. That balance, that strength, that mystery. You see, detachment makes you magnetic. Not because you're playing games, but because peace is rare. In a world full of noise, the one who stays calm stands out. When you stop chasing, you start attracting not just people, but opportunities, clarity, and self-respect. You start to realize that everything you were trying to find in others was waiting for you within yourself. That realization is what makes people regret losing you, because they realize they didn't just lose your presence, they lost your peace, your energy, and your loyalty. When you detach, you stop running after closure, because closure is no longer external. It's internal. You accept what happened, and you stop needing answers from those who broke you. You understand that not everyone can meet you where you are going, and that's okay. Letting go doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stopped sacrificing your peace to keep what's not meant for you. That's maturity. That's growth. Over time, your detachment becomes your protection. The things that once triggered you don't even move you anymore. You stop arguing, stop proving, stop fighting battles that only drain you. You understand that peace is too precious to waste on confusion. You become selective with your energy, not because you're cold, but because you finally learned its worth. And as you walk through life with this calm strength, those who once took you for granted will start to feel it. They'll notice that you've stopped checking in, stopped reacting, stopped being available at every emotional call. At first, they might think you've changed, but the truth is, you've simply healed. They'll miss the version of you who always cared, always tried, always stayed. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You've evolved into someone who no longer needs to prove love, because you've learned to embody it. That's the glow of detachment, peaceful, mysterious, and powerful. It's not about showing them you're better without them, it's about showing yourself that you always had everything you needed within. You stop living in reaction to others and start living in alignment with yourself. You move from emotional chaos to emotional clarity, and that clarity shines through everything you do. So when they look back and see you smiling, grounded, and unbothered, that's when the regret hits hardest. Because now, they can't reach the place where you've found peace. They can't touch the version of you that no longer needs them. That's when silence turns into power, and detachment turns into freedom. That's the real glow, not from what you lost, but from everything you found while walking away. After detachment comes the rise. The moment you stop explaining yourself, stop chasing, stop reacting, something powerful happens. You begin to evolve in ways no one expects. The same silence that once felt empty now becomes your foundation for growth. You no longer fight for attention, you build yourself so quietly that the world has no choice but to notice. This is the stage where your silence turns into transformation, where your strength is no longer something you talk about, but something you live. Leveling up in silence means you stop announcing your healing and start living it. You don't post about your growth, you embody it. You don't tell people you've changed, they can feel it in your energy. You move differently. You speak less but mean more. You've reached a point where you no longer seek validation because your focus has shifted inward, toward purpose, toward progress, toward peace. There's a deep psychology behind this kind of growth. When you begin to rebuild your confidence and invest in yourself, your brain starts releasing a sense of empowerment that replaces the need for approval. The things that once triggered you no longer have control. You start setting goals, creating routines, and forming habits that reflect your worth. Each small step, waking up earlier, taking care of your body, pursuing your dreams, becomes a quiet declaration: I'm no longer the person who depended on someone else to feel complete. You see, leveling up in silence doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means focusing your energy where it matters. It's choosing to spend your time improving rather than explaining. While others waste their energy trying to prove something to the world, you're building something the world will eventually see. That kind of discipline doesn't shout. It whispers power. When you grow in silence, people start to sense something different about you. Your presence changes. You no longer chase conversations that go nowhere. You no longer entertain situations that drain you. You stop trying to prove your worth to those who never recognized it. And that quiet withdrawal from chaos makes you glow differently, because peace is magnetic and progress is hard to ignore. The people who once doubted you, dismissed you, or walked away will start to feel it too, not because you're showing off your success, but because success has its own sound. The sound of silence that echoes through confidence. They'll notice how grounded you've become, how focused your energy is, how stable your emotions are, and that stability will make them realize what they lost. But remember, the goal isn't revenge or attention. The goal is evolution. Because when you grow, you heal. When you heal, you attract differently. You start surrounding yourself with people who match your peace, not your pain. You stop settling for temporary comfort and start chasing lasting fulfillment. You become more selective, more intentional, and more peaceful. And that's when life starts rewarding you in ways you never imagined. Growth in silence also teaches you patience. It reminds you that not every victory needs to be shared, and not every move needs an audience. Real power moves are made in silence because silence protects vision. People can't ruin what they don't know. While others rush to show results, you focus on the process, trusting that what's built slowly lasts longer. That mindset separates those who heal from those who pretend to. You begin to notice subtle changes within yourself. Your tone softens not because you're weak, but because you no longer need to prove strength. Your priorities shift from being seen to being stable. You stop begging for clarity from others and start finding it within. You start to realize that the person you're becoming deserves more than what you once settled for. That realization becomes your motivation, the quiet fire that drives you to keep going, even when no one's watching. And one day, when people finally see you again, they'll notice that your silence wasn't withdrawal, it was evolution. The same people who once overlooked you will now wonder how you transformed so effortlessly. But you'll know the truth. Your glow wasn't effortless, it was earned. It came from the nights you cried in silence, the mornings you pushed through pain, and the moments you chose discipline over distraction. That's what leveling up in silence really means. It's about becoming so focused on your growth that your past no longer defines you. You stop being the version of yourself that was built around others, and you start being the version that's built around peace. Your silence becomes your strategy, your growth becomes your revenge, and your happiness becomes your proof. Because the best kind of success doesn't need to be spoken, it's lived. The quiet kind. The kind that radiates through your energy, your confidence, your peace. And while others talk, you'll move. While they wonder, you'll build. And while they regret losing you, you'll be too busy creating the life you deserve. That's the true power of leveling up in silence. Not to make them see what they lost, but to make yourself proud of what you've become. You begin leveling up in silence. Something inside you shifts. Your definition of happiness changes. You no longer crave attention. You crave peace. The same noise that once pulled you in now feels exhausting. You realize that not every battle deserves your energy, not every argument deserves your voice, and not every situation deserves a reaction. This is where true strength shows itself, in your ability to stay calm while the world tries to pull you back into chaos. Choosing peace over drama is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of maturity. It's knowing that your time and energy are too valuable to waste on things that don't add to your growth. It's the moment you decide that peace is not something you'll wait for, it's something you'll create. When you reach that place, your life starts to feel lighter, your thoughts become clearer, and your heart begins to rest. You realize that the biggest flex isn't proving someone wrong, it's being so unbothered that you don't even feel the need to. Peace doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means you've learned to stay calm even when things aren't. It means you've learned to walk away from conversations that go in circles and people who live in chaos. You stop explaining yourself to those who twist your words. You stop trying to fix people who break you. You stop chasing closure from those who are at peace with your confusion. That's when you reclaim your power. When you stop letting outside storms control your inner weather. Psychologically, peace is one of the strongest signals of emotional intelligence. When you choose peace, you're teaching your brain to operate from balance instead of reaction. You're no longer a slave to impulses or ego. You don't need to win every argument because you've learned that peace is the real victory. You start responding, not reacting, observing, not absorbing. You listen more, speak less, and think deeply before acting. That calm energy becomes your superpower. People feel it the moment you enter a room. Those who once thrived on seeing you hurt will start to feel powerless. Your peace disarms them. Because drama feeds on attention, and when you stop feeding it, it dies. The person who once knew exactly which words to say to trigger you will suddenly find silence staring back. That silence will confuse them, it will frustrate them, and eventually it will make them realize that they can no longer control you. That's the silent victory peace gives you. Freedom from manipulation. But choosing peace isn't easy. It takes strength to walk away when your pride wants to fight. It takes control to stay calm when your emotions scream for reaction. It takes wisdom to realize that some people create chaos because they're not comfortable with calm. You learn to stop matching people's energy and start maintaining your own. You realize that protecting your peace sometimes means losing people, and that's okay, because peace never asks you to shrink, it asks you to release. There's a special kind of glow that comes from being unbothered. It's the glow of someone who no longer seeks approval or attention, someone who has outgrown unnecessary drama. You don't chase explanations anymore because you've accepted that peace matters more than being understood. You don't overthink who stayed or who left because you've realized that peace cannot exist where confusion lives. You stop fighting for closure from people who were never meant to be your home. And here's what happens next. The moment you start choosing peace, people begin to notice. They can't figure out why you're so calm, why you're so stable, why their chaos no longer affects you. That's when the regret begins to surface. Because people remember peace when they lose it. They remember the person who brought calm when everyone else brought confusion. The same calm they once took for granted becomes the silence that echoes in their mind. Peace changes the way you carry yourself. You no longer react to insults, you respond with distance. You no longer chase closure, you close the door yourself. You no longer beg for love, you nurture it within. That level of calm makes you stand out because peace is rare and people always notice what's rare. This doesn't mean you stop feeling. You still care, but you care wisely. You still love, but you love with boundaries. You still give, but you give from overflow, not from emptiness. You've learned that not everyone deserves access to your energy, because your energy creates your reality. The more peaceful your energy becomes, the more peaceful your life becomes. Choosing peace over drama isn't just about letting go of people. It's about letting go of your old self. The self that needed to explain everything. The self that couldn't rest until they understood. The self that thought closure came from someone else. You outgrow that version and step into one that's quieter, wiser, and freer. And the beautiful part? Peace attracts everything that chaos once chased away. Better people, better opportunities, better love. Because when you protect your peace, the universe matches your calm with clarity. You no longer run after what's meant for you, it finds you naturally. That's the real power of peace. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't need to be seen. It just is, steady, quiet, and unshakable, the kind of peace that makes others wonder how you do it. While you simply smile, knowing you've finally learned the greatest truth of all, not every storm needs your presence. Some storms end when you walk away. Peace opens the door to something even deeper, self-worth. Once you stop chasing chaos, you start remembering who you are. You begin to realize that your value was never lost, it was simply forgotten under the noise of trying to be enough for someone who didn't see you. The moment you reconnect with your worth, everything changes. You no longer beg to be chosen, you start choosing yourself. Self-worth is not arrogance. It's the quiet understanding that you deserve the same love, respect, and effort you once gave so freely. It's knowing you don't have to earn affection by overgiving or proving your loyalty. You already are enough, just by being who you are. And when that truth sinks in, your entire energy shifts. From seeking to attracting, from chasing to receiving, you start to see patterns differently. You begin to understand that some people didn't reject you because you weren't enough. They rejected you because they weren't ready for your depth. They couldn't handle the kind of love that required honesty and growth. Self-worth helps you see that their inability to value you was never about your lack. It was about their limits. That awareness sets you free from taking everything personally. The power of self-worth lies in your standards. It's in the way you no longer tolerate inconsistency. It's in the way you protect your energy like something sacred. It's in the way you stop explaining why you deserve better, because you simply start living like you do. When you know your worth, you don't chase closure, you give yourself peace. You don't beg for effort, you mirror it. You don't wait for someone to realize your value, you embody it every single day. Psychology tells us that our sense of self-worth influences every decision we make, who we love, what we accept, and how we allow others to treat us. When your self-worth rises, everything else in your life starts aligning with it. You attract people who respect you, situations that challenge you, and opportunities that grow you. Because life always mirrors how you feel about yourself. The more you value yourself, the less space you leave for anything that diminishes you. Reconnecting with your worth also means forgiving yourself. Not for loving, but for forgetting yourself in the process. You forgive yourself for staying too long, for ignoring red flags, for mistaking attention for love. You realize that every mistake wasn't failure, but a lesson that brought you closer to the truth, that you've always been worthy of love, even when someone else couldn't see it. That forgiveness becomes your foundation for strength. When you truly know your worth, your silence becomes powerful. You don't need to prove your point or defend your choices. You don't need to remind anyone of your value because you finally stop negotiating with people who require convincing. You no longer fear losing people because you understand that what's real won't need to be chased. You stop overthinking because you trust that peace never asks you to shrink to fit someone's comfort. And here's what makes self-worth so magnetic. It creates a kind of confidence that's impossible to fake. It's not loud or flashy, it's calm and centered. You walk differently, speak differently, and carry yourself like someone who knows exactly what they bring to the table. That quiet confidence draws people in, especially the ones who once underestimated you. Because nothing makes someone realize your value more than watching you live like you finally see it. Those who once ignored your love start to notice your strength. They see the calm in your eyes, the peace in your tone, the boundaries in your actions. They feel the difference, the emotional distance that no longer seeks validation. That's when the regret begins to take shape. because now they realize they didn't just lose your presence. They lost someone who once made them feel understood. And while they wrestle with their regret, you move forward, not out of pride but out of purpose. Self-worth also teaches you patience. You no longer rush love, because you know the right person will meet you with the same energy you give. You no longer settle for temporary affection, because you've learned that consistency is the real form of love. You no longer chase potential, because you're now focused on peace. You wait, not because you're afraid of being alone, but because you've learned that being whole is far better than being half-loved. The truth is, once you understand your worth, you become unshakable. You no longer crumble when someone walks away. You no longer lose yourself when love ends, because you've built a foundation within that no one else can take away. That's what true self-worth does. It anchors you. It reminds you that your value doesn't decrease when someone fails to see it. And in that quiet realization lies your greatest power, the power to walk away without anger, to love without losing yourself, and to stand alone without feeling empty. Because when you truly know your worth, you stop asking, "Why didn't they choose me?" and start saying, "I'm proud I finally chose myself." That's the kind of strength that makes people regret losing you, not because you changed who you are, but because you finally remembered who you've always been. There comes a point when your growth, your peace, and your self-worth merge into something undeniable. A life that speaks louder than any words ever could. You stop trying to prove yourself to anyone because your life itself becomes proof of your strength. Every action, every choice, every step you take reflects the person you've become. When you live this way, regret isn't forced upon others. It arrives naturally because they see what they lost in the reflection of your thriving. Living a life that speaks for itself begins with intention. You stop drifting through the world, waiting for recognition, validation, or approval. Instead, you move deliberately, building the life you want quietly, consistently, and purposefully. You invest in yourself, your skills, your mind, your body, your passions. You chase dreams that ignite your soul, not those that impress others. Every small improvement compounds into a transformation that's impossible to ignore. The beauty of this approach is that it's subtle yet profound. You don't need to broadcast your victories. They are visible in your confidence, your demeanor, and your calm presence. The person who once underestimated you notices the change immediately. They see a life filled with energy, purpose, and joy. A life they once had access to but failed to value. That silent demonstration of fulfillment becomes more persuasive than any argument or explanation could ever be. Psychologically, humans respond to visible proof. They don't just remember what you said, they remember what you embodied. When your life becomes a reflection of your worth, it leaves an imprint on their mind. They notice your independence, your achievements, your happiness. They sense the freedom you have that they cannot replicate. That's the kind of regret that sticks, because it's rooted in reality, not perception. Living authentically also teaches resilience. You no longer measure your days by someone else's presence or absence. You no longer define your happiness by external validation. Instead, you create a life that fulfills you from within. That fulfillment radiates outward, attracting people who appreciate the depth of your character and your commitment to yourself. It's not about drawing attention, it's about embodying your value so fully that it becomes impossible to overlook. Another aspect of this life is discipline. You rise early, focus on your goals, and honor your commitments. You nurture your mind and body because you know they are the vessels of your growth. You invest in relationships that uplift you, and you step away from those that drain you. Every choice reinforces the narrative of a person who respects themselves, protects their energy, and prioritizes growth over drama. That narrative is louder than any words, and it leaves a mark that is unforgettable. Happiness becomes your language, joy becomes your signature, and success, in whatever form it comes, becomes the proof of your transformation. The person who once overlooked you begins to realize that their absence has no power over your life. They see your achievements, your stability, and your emotional strength, and it dawns on them that they lost someone irreplaceable. That realization isn't forced, it grows quietly, naturally, and painfully. The secret to this kind of life is focus. You're no longer distracted by old wounds or what-ifs. You channel your energy into creating something lasting, something meaningful, something that reflects your worth. you understand that the most powerful statement isn't made with words or confrontation. It's made by showing up consistently as the best version of yourself. Every day becomes a testament to your strength, your independence, and your resilience. And as you continue to live this life, you discover freedom. Freedom from regret, from bitterness, from the need to prove yourself. Freedom to pursue what fulfills you, to embrace your passions, to experience joy fully, and to love deeply without compromise. That freedom is magnetic. It attracts the right energy and repels what no longer serves you. The person who lost you may observe this quietly, feeling a pull of regret they cannot escape. Ultimately, living a life that speaks for itself is about honoring your journey. It's about understanding that your value isn't defined by others' recognition, but by your own commitment to your growth and happiness. It's about building a legacy of strength, peace, and authenticity that no one can take away. And as they watch you rise without them, they realize that what they lost was never about something tangible. It was about a presence, a light, a person who could not be replicated. This life becomes your quiet triumph. Your success is not loud or forced. It is natural, earned, and undeniable. And in that natural evolution, the person who once failed to appreciate you feels the weight of their choice, not because you made them feel it, but because your life itself speaks volumes. That's the power of living fully, authentically, and unapologetically, a power that leaves an indelible impression on everyone who once underestimated your worth. There is a unique kind of strength in moving on, a strength that doesn't need to be shown, explained, or justified. Moving on isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending the past didn't hurt. It's about accepting the reality, honoring your journey, and stepping forward with grace, clarity, and confidence. The moment you truly move on, you reclaim your life and create a version of yourself that no one can take away, and that is the sweetest victory of all. Moving on begins with release. You stop carrying the weight of what could have been, of what was lost, or of what you feel was unfair. You stop replaying the moments when they didn't value you. You stop imagining scenarios where things could have turned out differently. That mental and emotional release is your first step toward freedom. It clears the clutter that has been holding your energy hostage and allows your spirit to breathe again. The psychology of moving on is powerful. When you let go, you remove yourself from the cycle of obsession and attachment. You stop waiting for someone to regret their choices. You stop analyzing every text, every action, every look. Instead, you redirect that energy inward, toward your growth, your dreams, and your happiness. That shift is liberating because it transfers control back to you. You stop being at the mercy of someone else's actions and you start being the author of your own life. There is a quiet power in moving on that others feel immediately. They may not see the effort, the tears, or the sleepless nights it took to get there, but they sense the change in your presence. You move with a confidence that is calm yet unshakable. You laugh more freely, speak with clarity, and hold yourself with a dignity that can't be taken. That's when regret begins to form in those who once underestimated you. They realize, sometimes too late, that the person they let go is now untouchable, not because they are distant, but because they are whole. Moving on also brings clarity. You start seeing people and situations for what they truly are, rather than what you hope them to be. You stop rationalizing behavior that hurt you. You stop excusing disrespect or inconsistency. And in that clarity, you gain wisdom. The wisdom to avoid repeating the same mistakes, to protect your peace, and to choose relationships that honor your value. The power in that clarity is silent but unmistakable. It makes you untouchable by regret, pain, or manipulation. One of the most rewarding aspects of moving on is the sense of self-empowerment it creates. Every step you take away from someone who undervalued you strengthens your identity. Every day you spend investing in yourself reinforces your confidence. Every moment you choose happiness over resentment teaches you that you are in control of your life. This is a victory that can't be stolen, bought, or diminished, because it is built on your resilience, your courage, and your self-love. The sweet victory of moving on is also a lesson in patience. You don't rush healing or force closure. You understand that time reveals truth, and that your peace doesn't depend on someone else's understanding. Instead, you focus on living fully, loving deeply, and growing consistently, and in doing so, you become someone who commands respect, not through confrontation, but through the undeniable glow of your transformation. Moving on changes the way you experience the world. You notice beauty more clearly, you appreciate moments more fully, and you value people who reflect your energy. You stop seeking fulfillment in places that once left you empty. You embrace solitude not as loneliness but as freedom, a space where you can nurture your dreams, reflect on your journey, and truly enjoy your own company. This independence becomes one of the most magnetic aspects of your presence, and when they see you again, whether in person, through updates, or through the life you lead, the regret becomes inevitable. They feel the absence of what they once had, but that